Hey guys, tonight we begin with something ancient, something patient, and something sharpened by silence. You're not in your bed anymore. You're on a thin mat of woven straw, your back aching ever so slightly, your breath fogging up the early morning chill. Outside, a lone crow barks into the darkness. It is not even dawn, and yet your eyes open before the sun dares to rise, because you are in training. You sit up slowly, careful not to disturb the order of the futon. Every fold matters. Every wrinkle is a small rebellion against discipline. You reach for the edges and begin to fold with exactness, hands slightly stiff from sleep. Your knees pop, your shoulders protest. But that doesn't matter. Not here. You are a samurai in training, and that means discomfort is not the enemy. It is the teacher. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And comment below, what time is it for you, and where are you listening from? Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Outside, the air smells of cold wood and the faint sweetness of rice husks. You hear the distant creak of bamboo, the soft flap of a hanging cloth being pulled by morning wind. Everything feels slower here, more deliberate. You move barefoot across the floorboards, wincing slightly at their chill. There is no fire yet, no breakfast, just stillness, and a heavy bowl filled with yesterday's water. You splash your face, and it stings, like truth. Cold, unforgiving, and necessary. The sensation shoots through your nerves like a katana along silk. There's no towel. You drip dry, blinking away the final fog of sleep. Then you kneel before the kamidana, a small wooden shelf holding paper charms, a sprig of pine, and a sliver of salt. You bow once, twice, and whisper a silent gratitude, not just for life, but for another chance to improve. Even if it's just by the width of a breath. You hear footsteps in the corridor, someone older, more practiced. Their movements whisper with confidence. Yours still are a bit clumsy. That's okay, you're not a warrior yet. Outside, the training courtyard waits like an open scroll, ready to be written on by your sweat and stumbles. But before that, tea. Bitter, green, and hotter than you remembered. You take it without sugar, without complaint, and with the blank face of someone pretending not to care that it tastes like boiled grass and regret. You bow to the cup because everything is a ritual. You are one sip wiser, one prayer lighter, and one sunrise closer to whatever version of yourself this path is trying to carve. You step out onto the stone walkway just as the sky begins to blush with the faintest suggestion of dawn. It's not quite light, but not fully dark either, like the world is still deciding whether to wake up or stay asleep. You move quietly, because every creak of wood under your foot feels like an offense against the silence. Your body knows what comes next before your mind catches up. You walk to the courtyard where the bakken, the wooden sword, waits for you. It lies on a clean cloth as if someone laid it down not as a tool but as a question. Are you ready? Probably not, but that's not the point. You bow to the weapon, not because it's a superstition, but because it's a reminder. The sword is not a toy. It doesn't care if you're sleepy. It doesn't care if your knees ache or if your tea was too bitter. It demands presence. You lift the bakken, and it feels heavier than yesterday. Or maybe your arms are just more aware. You grip it correctly. Or at least you try. Left hand near the base, right hand just below the guard. Elbows relaxed, shoulders down, eyes forward. Your sensei stands a few paces away, arms folded, face unreadable. He doesn't speak. He only watches. And somehow that is worse than 1,000 shouted instructions. His silence is the loudest critique. You take your stance, feet shoulder-width apart, knees slightly bent, and then nothing happens. You wait, because part of the training is learning to be still. You hold that position, breathing slowly, in through your nose, out through your teeth, again and again, until the noise in your brain starts to settle like dust after a storm. Your arms tremble, your thighs burn. Your back starts to scream like a forgotten hinge. But you stay. You stay because you're not here to be comfortable. You're here to be carved. by repetition, by silence, by that ever-watchful gaze. And just when you think your legs are about to give, the sensei nods. It's almost imperceptible. A flick of the chin like a leaf catching wind. But you see it. You move. One step forward. Strike. But not a wild slash. No. It's measured. Precise. The blade arcs through the air with a whisper that sounds almost like breath. You land it. Then back to position. Reset. Again. Step. Strike. Reset. You repeat the motion until it stops being a motion and starts becoming a rhythm. Until your muscles begin to remember what your thoughts no longer need to explain. Until your breath and your blade move as one. And still, he says nothing. You glance at him, trying to read his expression. But all you find is patience. Deep, endless patience. Like a mountain waiting for a stream to learn how to flow. You finish the final form with a low exhale. The sun is rising now, and the bakken in your hand is slick with sweat. You bow again, lower this time. You're not better, but you're more aware. You return the sword to its cloth, hands trembling not from fatigue but from reverence. Your training has just begun. The midday sun hangs just above the rooftops, casting long, slanted shadows that stretch across the gravel path like sleepy arms. You leave the quiet of the calligraphy room behind and step back into the living world, where chores await not as punishment, but as practice. Today, it's sweeping. Not dramatic, not symbolic, just sweeping. You're handed a broom made from bundled twigs tied with string and pointed toward a long corridor where dust seems to gather with a sense of purpose. You bow to the broom, to the floor, to the task, because that's what's expected. And then you begin. The bristles scratch softly against stone and wood, and the rhythm becomes almost musical. Not a song exactly, but a tempo. Your own breath falling in and out of step with each stroke. Dust curls into tiny clouds that sparkle for a moment in the sunlight before disappearing into your shadow. Another student passes by, nods silently, and continues sweeping the opposite end. You don't speak. You don't need to. There is a shared understanding that this isn't busy work. It's discipline in disguise. If you can sweep with attention, you can swing a blade with intention. You bend, sweep, step, repeat. A leaf has fallen inside, carried by the breeze or a restless spirit. You lift it gently as though it were a message. It's bright red, absurdly out of season. For a brief second, you wonder if it's a test. Then you let that thought go. That too is part of training. Learning not to assign meaning to every odd thing. Sometimes a leaf is just a leaf. Your arms begin to ache. You adjust your grip. You keep going. There is no applause when you finish, no clapping, no pat on the back. Just a clean corridor, a slightly frayed broom, and the knowledge that something has shifted inside you. Small, invisible, but real. The sensei walks by. He glances at your work. Says nothing. And yet, you feel seen. You place the broom back where it belongs, handle forward, bristles off the ground aligned perfectly with its neighbor. The alignment matters. Even tools rest with purpose here. You bow once to the closet door before sliding it shut, and as you turn to leave, you realize that even the act of walking away feels steadier than it did this morning. You've changed. Just a little. But enough. The courtyard is different in the afternoon light. Warmer now, but not forgiving. The shadows have shortened and the air smells faintly of pine, sweat, and iron. You're summoned to the outer training ring where sparring takes place. Not with sharpened blades, of course. You're not ready for that. Not even close. Today is kumite, practice combat, with bakken. And your opponent? Your younger cousin. He's shorter, faster, and has the annoying advantage of not caring if he bruises you. In fact, he seems to enjoy it. He bows with a grin that borders on cocky. You return the bow stiffly, trying to remember that honor matters more than victory. You take your stances. A clap from the instructor signals the start, and then you hesitate. He doesn't. The first strike comes fast. It catches your shoulder with a satisfying thwack that echoes across the courtyard like an accusation. You flinch, He doesn't. You adjust your grip and try to steady your breath, but your hands are already sweating. Your bakken feels heavier, clumsier, more like a branch than a blade. He circles you with the casual confidence of someone who's done this more often and better. You swing. Miss. He taps your side. Again and again. By the fourth strike, your pride is more bruised than your ribs. You're breathing hard now, heart pounding louder than the footfalls on the gravel. You remember something from the morning reading. A true warrior does not fight the opponent. They fight the urge to react. You try not to react. You fail. He lands another strike to your shin. You inhale deeply. Hold. Reset your feet. This time, you wait. He lunges again, but you're ready. Not to attack, but to not panic. You parry. Barely. But it's something. The rhythm changes, if only slightly. He blinks. Surprised. You press your advantage, not with speed, but with silence. Your movements grow calmer. You still get hit, yes, but fewer times. Your strikes don't land with power, but they land. And by the end of the session, you're standing straighter, not victorious, but dignified. You both bow. Your cousin smirks. You smirk back. Because sometimes improvement is simply not crying in front of everyone. You wipe your face with a towel that smells like sun and effort. Your knuckles are red. Your forearms ache. Your spirit, though, feels lighter. You learned something today. Pain is not punishment. It's punctuation, and your story is still being written. You walk off the training ground with legs that feel like soaked wood, heavy, splintered, and slightly on fire. Every muscle in your thighs sings a quiet, resentful tune, and your shoulders hum with the dull ache of having held still for far too long. You think of complaining, briefly, but there is no one to listen. And even if there were, complaint is not part of the code, so instead, you go to the well. It sits near the edge of the temple courtyard, shaded by an ancient pine that creaks just slightly in the wind, as if it too remembers what it's like to hold tension for centuries. You draw water in a wide-lipped wooden bowl, letting it slosh cool against your palms. You cup some and splash it over your neck. It shocks you awake in the gentlest way possible, like truth whispered before dawn. And then comes breakfast. Not the kind with variety or options. Not scrambled eggs or soft bread or anything even remotely indulgent. This is rice. Plain, white, and intentionally bland. Served with a few pickled vegetables that taste like sour apologies, and a miso broth so thin it barely registers as food. And it is perfect. You kneel properly, back straight, bowl in both hands. You eat slowly, not because you are full, but because you are taught that rushing is disrespectful. To the rice, to the cook, to the silence itself. Others eat around you, young trainees like you who have also been up since the sky was ink. No one speaks. Not because they don't want to, but because they don't need to. The food, like the sword, is part of the lesson. Discipline doesn't end with training. It seeps into your breath, your posture, your chopsticks, and somehow the act of chewing becomes a kind of meditation. You count the grains not with numbers but with your attention. You chew like you mean it. Across from you, one of the senior trainees raises his bowl in thanks before taking the last sip of broth. His movement is so fluid, so practiced, it feels like part of a kata. You mimic it, not perfectly but with effort. There is a kind of quiet pride in these rituals. Not pride in accomplishment, but pride in care. That even this, the dull ache in your shoulders, the sticky rice between your teeth, is being done the right way. You finish and bow slightly over the empty bowl. And for the first time this morning, your body is still. Not because you're done, but because you're beginning to understand. You rise from breakfast with care, balancing your bowl as though it were something sacred. Because here it is. Everything you touch, every grain of rice, every drop of water, every moment of stillness is part of the path. You wash the bowl yourself, without instruction. No one has to tell you. The expectation is in the air, like the scent of pine and smoke. You scrub with quiet hands and cold water, the rough cloth tracing the rim like memory, and when you're done, you dry it with a square of linen, fold it, and return it to its proper place. No applause, no praise. just quiet satisfaction. Next is calligraphy. It's not something you look forward to, at least not yet. Your hand still shakes slightly when holding the brush, but that's exactly why it matters. You enter the study hall, where low tables rest on tatami mats and morning light filters through rice paper screens. Everything smells of old ink, cedar wood, and time. Your teacher sits in the far corner, already writing. His strokes are smooth, effortless, like wind on still water. You bow, kneel, and take your place. A fresh sheet of paper waits before you, blinding in its emptiness. The inkstone is wet and ready. The brush is thin, wiry, and slightly worn. You dip it slowly, carefully, and begin. Your first stroke is too fast, the second too light, the third, not terrible. Each kanji you copy is more than a word. It is a test of balance, patience, and breath. You forget what they mean because the meaning now lives in the motion. You're not just writing. You're carving your thoughts into silence. Somewhere behind you, a window creaks. A bird lands on the sill. You ignore them both. For once, your mind is still enough to notice only the ink gliding across paper, your wrist rising and falling like a tide. You pause. Your hand cramps. You shake it out and bow to the page. This is harder than sword training, but in some ways, it's more revealing. You cannot hide in calligraphy, not behind speed, not behind power. It shows you as you are, hesitant, uneven, improving one imperfect stroke at a time. You finish the last character and exhale like you've just crossed a finish line. Your teacher glances over. He doesn't nod, but he also doesn't frown. That's as close as you'll get to encouragement today. And strangely, it's enough. You clean your brush, let it rest across the inkstone, and roll up your paper with care. Not because it's good, but because it's yours. After the sparring match, you retreat to a shaded walkway behind the dojo, where wooden beams creak quietly and the wind carries the faint scent of crushed grass and old lacquer. Your arms are tired, your breath still uneven, and your pride, well, it's recovering. You sit on the edge of the walkway, legs dangling just above the gravel, and place your bakken gently beside you. Even when resting, it's treated with respect. You straighten your back not because anyone's watching, but because that's the habit now. You rest with awareness. A few others pass by, nodding politely. One offers you a folded cloth soaked in cool tea, bitter barley with a touch of something floral. You press it to your face and it feels like a secret blessing, the kind of reward that doesn't need to be spoken. You've survived the lesson. That's enough. And then, the bell rings. Not loudly. It's a soft chime, hollow and clear, but it slices through the air like a thread through silk. It signals the start of temple chores. Today it's the meditation hall. You walk barefoot through the corridor, footsteps nearly silent on the woven mats. At the entrance you bow. Not because it's required, but because something about the space makes you want to. Inside it's dim, cool. The scent of sandalwood hangs in the air like a whisper. The only sound is the distant rustle of robes and the occasional creak of old floorboards under even older feet. You're handed a cloth, nothing more. No instructions. Just that small square of woven fabric and the expectation that you'll understand. And you do. You kneel and begin wiping the floor, gently, in smooth lines, always moving with the grain. It's not about making the floor spotless. It's about making your mind quiet. Stroke after stroke, you focus on the pressure of your hand, the glide of the cloth, the movement of your body in relation to the stillness of the room. Your knees complain, your back murmurs. You stay. This isn't penance, this is presence. The priest who watches over the hall doesn't speak, but he walks slowly between rows of young trainees. His steps are almost impossibly quiet, like someone born into silence. You hear your own breath again, not fast, not labored, just there. And suddenly something inside you shifts. Not a big change, just a tiny click. As if your thoughts have found a place to rest between the strokes of the cloth. You finish your portion of the floor, bow once more, and rise. There's no applause, no correction, just calm, and that is perhaps the truest reward of all. You step back into the light with hands that feel scrubbed clean, not just from soap or cloth, but from thought. Something about that floor work, it stays with you, not like a lesson, but like a rhythm you've internalized. The quiet repetition, the smooth grain of wood, the stillness that filled the gaps between breaths. You take the long path through the garden now, rather than rushing straight to the next task. Not because you're stalling, there's no such thing as stalling here, but because the winding way offers you something the direct path doesn't: perspective. Stone lanterns dot the edge of the trail, moss creeping around their bases like old memories refusing to fade. You pass koi ponds that shimmer like melted coins, and bamboo groves that sway even when there's no wind. It's all perfectly arranged but never forced. Nature, edited but not silenced. You sit on a flat rock beneath a maple tree just beginning to hint at autumn. A tray is placed in front of you, ceremony-grade tools arranged with surgical precision. This is not lunch. It's the tea ritual. Your host is the tea master, an elder whose face has more creases than a well-folded scroll. He says nothing, only nods. You return the nod, and the ritual begins. Everything is deliberate, the way the water is poured, the way the whisk is turned, the way the bowl is rotated twice, no more no less, before being offered. You take it with both hands. You bow slightly. You sip, and it is bitter. Not unpleasant, just deeply, unapologetically bitter. Like the earth itself has been brewed and strained into this single cup. It demands attention. You cannot drink it casually. You cannot scroll through anything while sipping this tea. It commands presence. And yet, it calms you. Because here, bitterness isn't the opposite of sweetness. It's the teacher of it. You sit longer than you need to, bowl in hand, steam rising in soft spirals like quiet thoughts lifting from the body. The tea master doesn't ask you if you understand. He doesn't need to, because this is not about understanding. It's about honoring what is, no matter how bitter. You bow again, this time deeper. He accepts it with a glance that feels like a chapter closing. You place the bowl down gently and walk away lighter. Not because the tea was delicious, but because you gave it your full attention. The sun hangs directly overhead now, casting crisp shadows beneath the eaves and turning the gravel paths almost white with brightness. Your robe clings slightly to your skin, damp with the kind of sweat that doesn't come from sprinting or lifting, but from focus. Quiet, invisible work. You make your way toward the archery range, passing under a wooden gate that creaks in greeting. Here the mood is different. Still serious, still sacred, but sharper. There is tension in the air like a bowstring held just before release. You're handed a yumi, a longbow taller than you, asymmetrical, elegant, and completely foreign in your hands. The string feels impossibly taut. The arrows are longer than you expect. And the target? It looks very far away. A single circle painted on paper, swaying slightly in the breeze. Mocking you. The instructor says nothing at first. He simply watches as you fumble with the bow. Your grip is off. Your elbow flares out too far. Your fingers hesitate at the draw. He corrects you with a single tap here, a subtle nudge there. His silence feels instructional, not indifferent. You try again, and again, and again. The first arrow doesn't fly. It flops. The second, better, but still misses the straw completely. The third barely leaves the string before spinning into the dirt like a stubborn thought refusing to go where it's told. You inhale slowly. Reset. Not to succeed, but to try without flinching. On the fourth attempt, you hit the outer ring. Not dead center. Not even close. But it hits. And that feeling of release, of follow-through, of something connecting beyond you, is like a whispered compliment from the universe. The instructor doesn't cheer. He just gives a barely there nod. You feel it like thunder. Each arrow afterward carries a little more intention. You're still missing most of them, but now you're missing them well, with better form, better breath, less expectation, more presence. There is something beautifully absurd about aiming for perfection with a tool that was never built for ease. The bow creaks, the string hums, the arrow sings, and even when it lands in the wrong place, you feel oddly right. You retrieve the arrows yourself, barefoot on the warm dirt. Each step is grounding, each shot a conversation between you and silence. And when your turn is done, you bow to the target, not because you hit it, but because you tried with your whole self. After archery, your hands ache, not from injury, but from effort. The space between your thumb and index finger pulses with a quiet fire, a reminder of the drawstring's resistance and your own uneven rhythm. You flex your fingers as you walk back toward the dormitory, the gravel crunching beneath your feet like whispers of unfinished thoughts. But you don't return to rest. Not yet. You're summoned instead to the sewing room. Yes, sewing. Because in the life of a samurai in training, torn sleeves and frayed hems don't repair themselves, and waiting for someone else to fix what you damage is not the way. Inside, the room is quiet. A small window lets in a rectangle of light that falls perfectly across your lap as you kneel on the floor. In front of you, a patch kit, a dull needle, and the sleeve of your own robe, ripped during a clumsy parry in this morning's sparring match. You sigh, then bow, because even this is part of the practice. Threading the needle feels more intimidating than not flinching under a wooden sword. The thread splits, the needle resists. Your hands, still trembling slightly from the bow, aren't made for this kind of precision. Not yet, but you keep trying. The first few stitches are crooked, awkward loops that resemble panic more than craftsmanship, but no one corrects you. No one even watches. This part is yours alone. And in that solitude, something curious happens. Your breath slows. Your shoulders ease. You begin to move not from frustration, but from care. Each stitch becomes a quiet promise to take responsibility for what you wear, what you wield, and what you damage. The tear shrinks. Not perfectly, but visibly. You sit back, needle resting in your fingers, and look at the work. It's not beautiful, but it holds. And somehow that feels like enough. A senior student passes behind you and glances at your repair. They don't say anything. They just offer a brief nod, the same kind you are starting to understand carries far more weight than praise. You fold the robe carefully and set it aside. And in doing so, you realize this wasn't about fabric, it was about fixing what you break. Quietly and with care, the sky begins to lean into its golden hours now. That soft slant of light painting the dojo walls with long, calm shadows. It's not quite evening, but the energy has shifted. The sharpness of midday has melted into something quieter, more contemplative. And that's exactly the tone of your next lesson. Reading. You sit in the study hall again, though this time there's no brush, no ink, no pressure to produce. Only a worn scroll in your lap, Hagakure, the hidden leaves, a guide to the way of the warrior. The paper smells of old wood and dust and maybe just a hint of ceremonial incense. You unroll it carefully as if opening a secret. The words are sparse but heavy. The way of the samurai is found in death. You pause. Not because it's frightening, but because it's still. You read it again. The sentence doesn't ask for agreement. It just exists, like a stone in a river, unmoving, but shaping everything around it. You continue. Each line is brief, but each demands attention. No unnecessary words, no dramatics. Just clean slices of truth, like everything else in this place. The lessons are about loyalty, readiness, humility. They're not about glory. They're not about winning. They're about letting go of ego. You shift slightly on your cushion, feeling the stiffness in your knees. You don't mind it anymore. Discomfort has become a kind of companion. One passage sticks with you. If one becomes like a corpse, no one can bring him to ruin. You let the words linger. And for the first time, you don't just read the sentence, you feel it. You understand, even if you couldn't explain it out loud. That's the way of things here. Truths don't always arrive in words. Sometimes they arrive in the stillness between them. The scroll crinkles gently as you roll it back up. Your hands move slowly, respectfully. You place it beside you, bow to it, and then to the room. You don't feel enlightened. You don't feel heroic. You feel quiet. And maybe that's what this whole thing has been about all along. Not becoming sharper, but becoming softer where it matters. The light is soft now, filtered through high paper windows that make the sky look more like a watercolor than a real place. You rise from the study hall slowly, knees stiff from sitting, and make your way back out to the open spaces of the temple grounds. The air is cooler, the wind gentler. Even the crows, so vocal this morning, seem to have lowered their voices. You head toward the western courtyard, where a small stone path leads into a grove of young trees. Here, the terrain changes. The gravel gives way to dirt. The edges blur. Nature takes back just a little control. And waiting for you there, nestled in a ring of worn stepping stones, is a basket of smooth pebbles. Your instructor stands beside it, arms folded, silent. He gestures once to the basket, then to you. You nod, and then it begins. He tosses a pebble into the air. You're supposed to catch it, not with your hand, not with both hands, with your reflexes. The first one hits your chest, bounces off. You flinch, slightly embarrassed. Another pebble. This time you swat at it like a fly. Miss? You reset your stance. Breath slower, eyes wider. The third stone comes faster. You catch it between your palms, barely, and the sound it makes, that small slap of success, feels oddly triumphant, like you just won something, even if it's only a stone. The instructor keeps going. Sometimes one stone, sometimes two. Sometimes he shouts as he throws, testing your attention, your discipline, your ability to stay present even when startled. And it works. Eventually you stop flinching. Eventually your body stops reacting like it's under attack. Eventually you begin responding, not with panic, but with rhythm. Catch, drop, catch, miss, catch, breathe. There is laughter from another student nearby who gets pegged squarely in the forehead. No one scolds them. The laughter is allowed. Even here, in this structured life, humor sneaks in through the cracks. Like light. After several rounds, your hands are red, your fingers tingling, but your mind is sharp. Not sharp like a blade, sharp like still water, reflective, quiet. Your instructor throws one last stone. You catch it effortlessly, almost gently. He nods once, the gesture saying more than words could. You bow, and place the pebble back in the basket, as if returning something borrowed. Late afternoon brings with it a cooler breeze, the kind that slips through the folds of your robe and makes your skin tighten just slightly. The temple begins to hum with the quiet rearranging of the day. Shadows grow longer. Footsteps soften. Conversations, already sparse, disappear entirely. You are summoned to the edge of the forest behind the main compound. This is where you will learn to move without sound. It's not called stealth training, it's not even given a name. But you understand the purpose as soon as you re-instructed to cross the grove and return, without being heard. The path winds between bamboo stalks and gnarled roots. Dry leaves coat the ground like fragile glass. One step and the crunch feels deafening. You freeze. You inhale. You try again. You realize quickly that this isn't about speed. It's not even about reaching the other side. It's about how little you disturb the world in the process. You shift your weight, step from heel to toe. Avoid the twigs, the loose stones, the open gravel. Your breath slows. Your body lowers. Your senses stretch wider than your arms. Somewhere behind a tree you sense someone watching. Perhaps the instructor. Perhaps something older than that. You feel the gaze but don't look toward it. Looking would make sound. Sound would break the moment. You take another step. A twig cracks beneath your foot. Failure? No. Lesson. You keep going. A spider dangles from a low branch in front of your face. You stop. Wait. Let it pass. It's not in your way. You are in its world. By the time you reach the clearing on the other side, your muscles are sore in places you didn't know existed. Not from movement, but from restraint, and you realize that's the point. Power is not always shown by striking. Sometimes it's shown by not disrupting a single leaf. You bow to the trees quietly and walk back through your own footsteps. You're not invisible, but you've become less present in all the right ways. Evening has arrived in full now, wrapping the temple grounds in layers of indigo and shadow. Lanterns flicker to life one by one. their paper shells casting warm halos onto stone and wood. You follow a narrow path lit by this soft glow, the gravel crunching more gently now under your more mindful steps. Tonight's lesson is quiet but not passive. Sword forms, not sparring, not strikes. Just you, the bakken, and the repetition of shapes. In the open dojo, lit only by lanterns and the silver edge of moonlight, the others already stand in a slow-moving line. Each trainee performs a kata, a sequence of movements passed down like whispered prayers. You kneel at the edge, bow deeply, and wait for your turn. When it comes, you step forward, bakken in hand. You begin. Step, raise, cut, return. It feels awkward at first, like speaking a language you only half remember. But soon the rhythm pulls you in, and you're no longer thinking, just flowing. The sword lifts, glides, and stops with precision. Again, again. Each movement sharper than the last, not from aggression, but from understanding. You're not swinging the sword, you're becoming the sword. You catch your reflection in the polished wood of the dojo's far wall. It surprises you, not the face but the posture, the focus, the silence. You look ready. A senior student corrects your footwork with a soft touch on your ankle. You adjust. He moves on. No words are exchanged. The lesson is understood. Outside, the wind stirs the trees, making the bamboo knock gently against itself like a chime made for warriors. You continue your forms, each one a meditation, each one a silent affirmation that you are learning not just how to fight, but how to be still inside movement. When your set is complete, you bow. Your breath is even, your eyes calm. And for the first time in days, your bakken feels less like a tool and more like an extension of who you are becoming. The lanterns glow dimmer now, their light softer, more golden than flame. You leave the dojo with your bakken tucked neatly beneath your arm, not dragging it, not gripping it too tightly, just carrying it like something valuable and earned. You return it to the rack with the others. There's no ceremony, no applause. Just a soft clack as the wooden blade meets its resting place. You bow to it. Always. Your legs ache. Your wrists hum. Your stomach is an empty drum, but you ignore it, because before rest comes stillness. Tonight's final discipline is seiza, the kneeling meditation. You enter the zazen hall, where the mats have already been laid and the incense lit. The room smells of cypress and smoke. A long, thin trail of ash rests on the lip of a burning stick like the tail of a sleeping dragon. You kneel. Tops of your feet flat against the mat, spine long, hands resting in your lap, one palm over the other, thumbs gently touching. Your eyes settle half open, half closed, looking, but not seeing, and then you begin to breathe, not to control it, just to notice it. In, out. The seconds stretch. Thoughts come, silly ones, loud ones. Thoughts about how your toes are already going numb, about what tomorrow might bring, about how itchy your ear suddenly feels. You let them pass. Each breath, a broom sweeping the room of your mind. Not to empty it, just to keep it clear enough to sit in. A bell chimes softly. Not the start, not the end. Just a reminder that time still exists. You do not move. Your knees begin to ache. You do not move. A bead of sweat tickles your temple. You do not move. Not because you are stubborn, but because this too is training. The discipline to stay, to feel, to witness your own discomfort and say, I see you, and I'm staying anyway. The bell chimes again. You bow from the waist slow and deep, and rise with the grace of someone who has faced themselves in stillness and chosen peace. The world outside hasn't changed, but you have, even if no one else can see it yet. You walk slowly now, not out of fatigue, but out of something deeper, reverence. The night has settled over the temple like a blanket woven from shadow and moonlight. Every step feels wrapped in velvet silence. You don't want to disturb it. You return to your quarters, but sleep is not next. There is one more ritual, reflection. Not outward, not written, just internal. You sit cross-legged on your mat, The room dim but familiar. A single candle flickers near the window, its flame swaying gently like a breath. You stare into it, not to be hypnotized, but to remember. You close your eyes and walk back through your day. The cold of morning water on your face, the ache of your thighs during that first silent stance, the sting of a wooden sword against your ribs, the bitterness of tea, the curve of your ink strokes, the stone that didn't hit you because, finally, you were paying attention. Each moment appears like a wave, small, quiet, breaking over you in gentle sequence. You don't judge them. You don't organize them. You just let them come. And with them, something unexpected. Gratitude. Not the loud, thankful kind, but the quiet sort that hums beneath the skin when you've endured something and come out softer, not harder. The door slides open slightly. It's the senior student, the one who corrected your footwork earlier. He doesn't speak. He just enters with 2 bowls and places one in front of you. Warm rice, a sliver of pickled plum. You nod. He nods. And you eat together. In silence. The rice is different tonight. Not in flavor, but in meaning. Each bite grounds you. Each chew reminds you that while discipline is your path, nourishment is what carries you along it. When the bowls are empty, he leaves as quietly as he came. You remain seated. The candle has nearly burned down, the wax forming a tiny river around its base. You extinguish it with a breath. Not too hard, not too soft, just enough. And then for the first time all day you lie down. Not because you're tired, though you are, but because you've earned this rest. Not with effort, but with presence. You wake before the rooster crows, not because someone calls you, not because a bell rings, but because your body already knows. The air is still heavy with night, cool against your skin, and the only sound is the faint rustle of bamboo leaves shifting in their sleep. You sit up slowly, your joints cracking like old wood. There's soreness, yes, but it's familiar now. It's part of the architecture of your day. You fold your blanket with care, no creases, no corners left loose. It's not about perfection. It's about respect, for the space, for the ritual, for yourself. Before anything else, you kneel at the small kamidana, the household altar still lit by the soft glow of a dying ember. You bow, twice. Clap your hands softly, then bow again. You whisper a thought, not quite a prayer, not quite a hope, just a quiet offering. Let today be steady. Your legs carry you back outside, through the temple path still wrapped in dew. The stones are cold beneath your feet. You breathe through it. That's always the first lesson of the day. Breathe through it. You're not alone. Other students move silently toward the same place, the inner courtyard where the morning kata begins. No one speaks. No one needs to. You line up. Your bakken is handed to you with a simple nod. You bow to the blade. You bow to the earth. And then it begins. Forms you've done dozens of times already, but they are not stale. They're like waves, always the same, yet always different. Step, strike, reset, breathe. You notice a difference this morning. Your grip is firmer. Your stance, steadier. The sequence flows from you with less hesitation. Not faster, but cleaner. It's not that you've become stronger. You've just stopped getting in your own way. The sensei passes behind you saying nothing as always, but you feel his gaze settle briefly on your back, and in that moment you feel seen. After the final sequence, everyone bows in unison. The silence after is deeper than the silence before. You return the bakken, your fingers tingling, not from effort, but from pride. The quiet kind. The kind that stays tucked in your chest and glows there like a coal. The day has only begun, but already something in you knows. You are not who you were when the sun rose yesterday. The sun has begun its slow climb over the tiled roofs, casting long golden beams across the courtyard as you sit beneath the veranda, bowl in hand. It's breakfast again. Rice, miso, and pickled vegetables. Exactly like yesterday. Exactly like the day before that. You don't mind. You eat in silence. There is something reassuring in the sameness. something steadying, a routine not meant to cage you but to carve you into shape little by little, like water shaping stone. Nearby, another trainee fumbles his chopsticks, dropping a piece of radish onto the mat. You see the moment of panic in his eyes, then the breath, then the quiet correction. He picks it up, bows to the bowl, and continues. No one laughs. No one scolds. Even small mistakes are part of the form. After the meal, you clean your bowl again. The act is familiar now, your hands finding each motion without thinking. Water, cloth, dry. You line it up with the others, perfectly parallel. The precision brings you peace. Your next task is to assist in the supply room, organizing tools, folding cloth, refilling the inkstones, and ensuring that the temple's quiet machinery continues to turn. It's not glamorous, but then again, nothing here is. You sweep the storeroom floor, stack the scrolls in their proper order, roll tatami mats that were used in the previous night's meditation. You find a small tear in one and pause. You kneel. Unroll it completely. Smooth it flat with both hands. You examine the tear and sew it shut with the same care you gave your robe. It's not your mat, but that's irrelevant. Everything here is everyone's. Every stitch is an act of belonging. Outside, the wind picks up just slightly, causing the chimes near the archway to whisper across the stones, a sound so gentle it feels like breath. You close your eyes for a moment and just listen. When you rise again, your hands dusty, your knees stiff, you feel grounded. Not in place, but in purpose. There are no grand tests today, no sparring, no formal instruction, but your back is straighter, your eyes more aware, and your heart quieter. It's enough. The afternoon air is thick and warm now, pressing gently against your skin like a damp cloth. You've finished your chores, washed your hands, and now, for the first time today, you're alone. Truly alone. Your instructor has assigned you a solo walk through the outer temple grounds. No destination, no pace, just you and the path. A test of presence, though no one calls it that out loud. You step through the back gate and into the trees. It's quieter here. Not silent. Nature never is, but quieter in a way that feels alive. You hear the rustling of leaves, the chirp of unseen birds, the creak of branches reaching toward the sun. Each sound feels intentional. Every scent, damp bark, crushed moss, distant incense, seems to settle into your body like a second breath. You walk slowly, not from fatigue, but because the path demands it. The stones are uneven. The roots twist like questions. You place your feet with care, not fear. There is no rush. Eventually, you reach a clearing. In the center stands an ancient cedar tree, its bark thick and gnarled, its roots like the fingers of some giant hand grasping the earth. You sit beneath it, cross-legged in the grass, and you do nothing. Not meditation, not reflection, just nothing. You watch ants crawl across a fallen leaf. You listen to the wind make its way through the high branches. You feel your pulse slow, not because you're calm, but because calm has taken hold of you like a soft cloak. For a brief moment, the entire forest seems to breathe with you. In, out. No thoughts push forward. No plans whisper at the edges. Just this moment. Exactly as it is. When you stand to return, your legs are stiff, but your steps are light. Not lighter than air, lighter than fear. And when you pass through the temple gate once again, no one is there to greet you. But you bow anyway, because something inside you knows you brought something back with you. Even if you can't name it yet. Evening drapes itself over the temple with the slow grace of a silken kimono. The lanterns are lit again, this time casting longer shadows that flicker with the slight tremble of wind. You return to the main courtyard to find the others already gathered, kneeling in formation beneath the hanging lights. Tonight it's reading again, but this time, not alone. The sensei stands before you all, holding a scroll wrapped in a faded silk ribbon. He doesn't speak at first. He just lets the silence settle like dust. And then, in a voice low and rhythmic, he begins. It's not a lesson. It's a story. An old one. About a samurai who lost his sword in a river. who chose to dive after it, not because it was valuable, but because it was his, who emerged with nothing but breath and still returned to train the next day. You don't know if the story is true, but it feels true. As the tale unfolds, the sensei's voice grows quieter, not louder. You lean in, not with your body, but with your attention. The story isn't about heroism. It's about perseverance, about not letting go of the thing you promised yourself you'd carry. When it ends, there is no applause, no commentary, just stillness. And somehow that feels fuller than words. After the story, each student is handed a slip of paper, small, thin, like the kind used for calligraphy. You are to write one phrase, one truth. Not for anyone else to read, just for yourself. You think for a moment. Then you write. Stay, even when it's hard. You fold the paper once, twice, and slide it into the wooden box placed at the front of the group. It joins dozens of others. No one will read them. They're not for reading. They're for carrying. Quietly, inwardly, like the weight of your bakken or the echo of your first missed arrow. The sensei bows once. You all bow in return. And just like that, the gathering disperses. Quiet footsteps on stone. Lanterns swaying. You walk back to your room with your hands loose and your breath calm. Inside, there's a cup of tea waiting, placed there by someone else, someone you didn't see. It's still warm. You sip it slowly, feeling the story still humming in your bones. The sword, the river, the breath. You won't forget. The moon is high now, sitting quietly in the sky like a silent guardian. Its light spills across the tiled roofs and casts soft silver shadows through the cracks in your window. You're not asleep yet, though your body has earned the rest. Instead, you kneel in the center of your room, carefully unfolding a thin cloth bundle. Inside is your armor. Not the full set, not yet. Just pieces. A forearm guard, a shoulder plate, a sash that carries the emblem of your family, hand-stitched in thread that has faded, but not disappeared. You were told to clean it, not because it's dirty, but because it's yours. And caring for it is part of becoming what it represents. You run a soft brush along the lacquered wood, watching dust lift into the lamplight like moths fleeing a dream. You wipe down the fabric ties, worn but strong. You tighten a loose thread, not because it might fall apart, but because it deserves the attention. The room is quiet but not dead. You hear someone snoring softly down the hall. The distant drip of water from a courtyard basin, the creak of old beams adjusting in the cool night air. All of it feels peaceful. Not perfect, but honest. You sit with the armor laid out before you, each piece now gleaming softly in the lamplight. You bow to it, not because it's sacred, but because it will one day protect you, and today you protect it. You roll the bundle up slowly, pressing out the air, tucking each fold like it matters, because it does. And then, just as you blow out the lamp, your hand rests on the wooden floor for a moment longer than necessary. It's warm beneath your palm, alive with memory. You lie down on your mat with your back flat, your hands at your sides. And for the first time tonight, you let your eyes close, not because the day is over, but because the next one is already waiting. The temple wakes slowly, like a river stirring from stillness. You rise before the light fully returns, instinct guiding your movements before thought. The routine is second nature now. Folding your mat, washing your face, bowing to the kamidana. But this morning feels different. Today is your first keiko outside the walls. Not battle, not war, but a lesson in motion, on unfamiliar ground where the wind doesn't respect the rhythm of temple life. You eat a smaller breakfast than usual, half a bowl of rice, a sip of tea, and meet the others by the south gate, where two instructors wait silently with travel packs slung over their shoulders. No explanation, no map. Just a glance that says, follow. And so you do. The path winds downhill, through misty trees and along narrow ridges where roots bite through the dirt like warning signs. You walk single file. No talking, just footsteps and breath. The further you go, the quieter your mind becomes. Eventually, you reach a clearing, flat, circular, ringed with low stones and the scent of pine needles baked by early sun. Here, you will train. No roof, no tatami, no perfect flooring to catch your balance. This dojo belongs to the earth. You form a line. The sensei gestures, and the warm-up begins, simple at first. Rolls in the dirt, low stances, forward falls. The earth is less forgiving than wood. Every impact echoes through your ribs. Every misstep stains your robe. But that's part of it. This is not a place for polished performance. This is a place to test what you've remembered. You're paired with another trainee, one who doesn't speak your dialect. But it doesn't matter. Your bows mean the same thing. So do your strikes. You spar slowly, then faster. You slip. You fall. You rise again. The instructor stops you mid-motion to adjust your footing, not with words but with a tap to your ankle. You nod. Try again. Better. The sun climbs higher. Your sleeves are soaked with sweat. Your hair clings to your neck. There is no clock here. Only breath. Only blade. Only the sound of your own heartbeat, steadying each time you land a strike with intention instead of impulse. By midday, the lesson ends, not with a bell, but with a bow, and a silence that says, "You're learning." You rest beneath the shade of a crooked pine, the bark rough against your back and the ground still warm from where your feet pressed into it during training. A cloth bundle rests beside you, rice balls, wrapped in bamboo leaf, and a single salted plum. Simple, nourishing, familiar. You eat slowly, your fingers smudged with dust and sweat. The rice sticks. The plum puckers your mouth with sharp salt. But it revives you somehow like a spark passed from the past into your belly. Across the clearing, your fellow trainees do the same, scattered like stones tossed gently across a pond. No one speaks. The silence is different out here. Not sacred, just natural. You lie back in the dirt and stare up through the branches. The wind moves them like hands brushing secrets through the sky. You think of nothing, then everything, then nothing again. A dragonfly lands on your ankle. You don't move. Its wings flicker like glass in the sun. It stays a moment, longer than you'd expect, and then lifts, zigzagging into the air without apology. You smile. Just a little. After lunch, the instructor leads you deeper into the woods, not on a path but through underbrush and uneven terrain. You move slowly, watching your footing, keeping your breath even. This isn't a hike, it's a lesson. You come to a shallow stream. He stops, points to it, then to your feet. You understand. Balance. He wants you to cross. You remove your sandals and step into the cold. It bites your skin like needles. The rocks shift beneath you, slick with moss, shaped for anything but comfort. Each step is a negotiation between gravity and grace. You wobble. You adjust. You breathe. Halfway across, the current surges stronger. Not deep, but enough to test your center. You pause, not to freeze, to feel. Then you continue. When you reach the other side, your ankles are tingling, your robe is damp, and your sense of self oddly is clearer. You bow to the stream, because it taught you, without saying a word, and you move on. The late afternoon sun filters through the trees in long beams, warming the temple grounds with a golden glow. You return to the main hall, where the tatami mats are laid out in neat rows, awaiting the evening's lesson. It's time for meditation, but not the kind you might expect. You kneel in seiza position, your back straight but relaxed. The air is filled with the faint scent of incense, sandalwood and cedar, and the soft rustling of silk robes. The room feels alive in its stillness. Your instructor enters quietly, bowing to the group before settling into a corner. The silence that follows is thick but not heavy. It invites you in like a gentle tide pulling you beneath the surface. You close your eyes and focus on your breathing. Slow, steady. In through the nose, out through the mouth. The rhythm of your breath becomes the rhythm of the room. Thoughts wander in, memories of the day, the ache in your legs, the bitter taste of tea. but you let them float away like clouds, returning your attention to the breath. Time stretches. Minutes pass, or maybe hours. It's impossible to say. Suddenly a soft bell chimes. Not loud enough to startle, just enough to remind. You open your eyes slowly, feeling grounded and present. You bow deeply and rise. The practice isn't about emptying your mind. It's about learning to sit with whatever comes, and in that sitting, finding peace. The evening deepens and the temple grounds are cloaked in the soft hum of night sounds. Crickets, distant frogs, the occasional rustle of leaves stirred by a gentle breeze. You find yourself drawn to the small garden behind the temple, where lanterns hang from low branches and cast pools of warm light on the stone paths. Tonight's lesson is simple but profound. Walking meditation. You step barefoot onto the smooth stones, feeling the cool surface beneath your feet. Each step is deliberate, slow, and full of intention. You lift your foot, move it forward, and place it down softly, imagining that the ground might be fragile, like glass, or sacred, like the pages of a book. Your breath aligns with your movement. Inhale, step. Exhale, step. The rhythm is unhurried, like a slow drumbeat in the distance. You pass a koi pond, its surface still except for the occasional ripple caused by a fish breaking the water. The reflections of lantern light dance like flames across the scales. And for a moment, you feel part of that quiet dance. Your mind, which often races, begins to slow. You notice the feel of the cool air against your skin, the subtle scent of blooming jasmine, the distant murmur of water flowing somewhere beyond sight. Each step becomes a prayer, each breath a vow, to be present, to be patient, to move with grace, even when the path is uncertain. When you finish the circuit, you pause and bow to the garden, silent gratitude for this lesson in stillness and motion. As you return to your quarters, the sky is dotted with stars. The moon glows softly, a silent witness to your journey. And you feel, somehow, lighter, ready for whatever tomorrow brings. The dawn creeps in quietly, filtering through paper screens and casting soft, shifting patterns on the tatami mats. You wake again, the ache in your muscles now a familiar companion rather than an enemy. You stretch slowly, feeling the knots loosen like threads coming undone. Today's lesson is different. It's about stories, not just any stories, but those whispered by the elders, passed down through generations, stories that hold the weight of history, honor, and warning. You gather with the others in the main hall, sitting cross-legged as the sensei begins to speak. His voice is low and steady, carrying the cadence of ancient times. He recounts tales of samurai who faced impossible odds, of battles fought with honor rather than anger, of moments where silence spoke louder than steel. You listen, not just with your ears, but with your whole being. The stories are not always grand. Sometimes they're about small acts, helping a stranger, refusing a bribe, holding a promise. But each one carries a lesson. Strength is not just in the sword, but in the heart. As the sun climbs higher outside, you feel a strange warmth settle in your chest. A quiet fire that has nothing to do with the day's heat. The lesson ends with a question, not spoken aloud but felt deeply. What story will you leave behind? You bow deeply, the question echoing in your mind like a drumbeat. The path of the samurai is not just about battles won, it's about the legacy carved in silence. And you are learning how to write yours. Mid-morning finds you back in the dojo. The wooden floors cool beneath your bare feet. The sensei stands at the center, a silent figure of patience and expectation. Today's training is subtle, footwork and balance, lessons that don't rely on force but on control. You begin with slow steps, each one deliberate, placing your weight evenly, feeling the ground beneath you as though it were a living thing. Your toes spread, your arches lift and your knees bend slightly, not locked but ready. The sensei watches carefully, correcting a wobble here, a heavy step there, but always with quiet guidance. His hands move like the wind, gentle but unyielding. You practice moving forward, backward, and sideways, each direction a new challenge. You learn to shift your weight smoothly, like water flowing around stones, never crashing, always adapting. There is no rush. No need to be the fastest or the strongest, only to be the most aware. Your breath matches your steps, slow and even, a metronome for your body. After hours of repetition, your legs burn and your mind grows sharp. You notice the small details, how the fabric of your robe moves with your steps, the faint creak of wood beneath the dojo's beams, the distant call of a bird outside. The sensei nods at your progress, a small, rare gesture of approval. You bow deeply in return, and feel, for a moment, like you belong, not just in the dojo, but on this path. The afternoon air is cooler now, carrying a faint scent of pine and earth. You find yourself walking toward the river that skirts the edge of the training grounds, the gentle sound of flowing water a balm to your tired muscles. The path is uneven, dotted with stones worn smooth by countless footsteps. You reach the riverbank, where the water moves steadily, reflecting the sky like a moving mirror. You pause, letting the calmness of the scene settle over you. Your instructor stands nearby, silent but present. He gestures toward the river and then toward your feet. You understand. It's time for a new kind of training. You remove your sandals and step into the cold water. The chill bites sharply at first, stealing the breath from your lungs. The stones shift beneath your feet, slippery and unpredictable. You move slowly, testing your balance, feeling the current tug gently at your ankles. 1 step, 2 steps. Your muscles tense with concentration. The river is alive beneath you, reminding you that even the strongest must yield sometimes. You lose your footing once, grip slipping on a moss-covered rock, but you catch yourself before falling. Your heart races, but you don't panic. Instead, you breathe. You adjust your stance and continue. With each careful step, you learn to trust your body and the water's flow. You reach the other side, soaked and tired but grounded. You bow to the river, a silent thank you, and step back onto solid earth. The lesson is clear. Strength is not always about fighting against the current. Sometimes it's about moving with it. The sun begins its descent, painting the sky in hues of orange and violet. You return to the dojo, muscles sore but mind sharpened, carrying with you the lessons of the river. The evening air is cool, a gentle contrast to the day's heat. Tonight, the training shifts focus to mindfulness and mental discipline. You gather with the others in the meditation hall, sitting quietly as the sensei lights incense. The scent fills the room, wrapping around you like a soft cloak. You assume the seiza position once more, spine straight, hands resting gently in your lap. Your eyes close halfway, focusing on the rhythm of your breath. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. Thoughts drift in, plans, worries, memories, but you acknowledge them without attachment, letting them pass like leaves floating down a stream. The sensei's voice breaks the silence, not with words, but with the soft toll of a bell. It rings once, twice, a reminder to return to the present. You sit longer than you think possible. The minutes stretch, and your mind quiets. When the bell tolls again, you open your eyes slowly. The room feels lighter, your spirit calmer. You bow deeply, gratitude flowing inward. This is the true heart of the samurai path. Not the sword, not the strength, but the stillness within. And you carry it with you, even as you prepare for tomorrow's challenges. The morning mist still lingers among the trees as you rise, feeling the damp chill kiss your skin. The silence around you is nearly absolute, broken only by the distant call of a solitary bird. You take a deep breath, savoring the freshness, knowing the day will be long but filled with small moments to master. You dress carefully, tying your obi with deliberate attention, feeling the fabric firm around your waist. Each knot a connection to the past and a commitment to the future. The dojo is calm, shadows of dawn still lingering, ready to dissipate. Before beginning, you approach the kamidana one last time. The altar is simple, holding a small pine branch and a bowl of fresh rice. You bow deeply, silently, thanking for the strength to continue, the patience to learn, and the humility to accept how much remains to master. Entering the dojo, the air is thick with the scent of aged wood and wax. Your fellow trainees are already lined up, their postures firm, eyes focused, breathing synchronized. You join them, feeling the weight and energy of the sacred space. The sensei appears, his presence as strong as the silence that follows him. He raises his hand to signal the start of training, and you respond with a firm but controlled movement. Today's focus is yaijutsu, the art of drawing the sword with speed and precision. You hold a lightweight wooden replica and practice the motion calmly, each gesture measured and intentional. It's not about speed, but about perfecting each second, the full awareness of body and mind. You repeat the movement several times, feeling the connection between breath and the imaginary cut slicing through the air. The sensei passes slowly beside you, watching without a word, his gaze conveying silent approval. As the sun climbs higher, warming the dojo, you feel a growing peace, not from ease, but from mastering patience, repetition, and surrender to the present moment. And so the day moves forward, slow, steady, and full of quiet, small victories. The wooden sword now rests in its rack, but its echo lingers in your forearms like a faint vibration, a reminder that precision is never finished, only paused. Noon drifts in with a hush of cicadas, their steady drone floating through the open windows and settling over the dojo like a warm blanket of sound. It is the hour when effort meets reflection. You are sent to the rear courtyard, a square of raked sand bordered by stone lanterns and low maples. Beside the gate waits an elderly gardener, small, stooped, wearing a straw hat so wide it casts its own little eclipse. He says nothing, simply hands you a bamboo rake polished smooth by decades of quiet conversations with the earth. The assignment is simple: redraw the sand, not rearrange. Redraw. The gardener demonstrates once. Long, unbroken lines that flow from one edge of the courtyard to the other, then a slow curve that bends like a river around an island of moss-covered stone. His arms barely move, yet pattern follows. When he finishes, the design looks effortless, as if the sand itself decided to settle into harmony. He steps aside. Your turn. You set the rake's teeth into the sand. The first pull jerks to the left. The line wavers. You exhale, too sharply. The cicadas pause, then resume as if chuckling. You try again, this time easing your grip, letting the weight of the bamboo do the work. The row straightens, but a stone hidden beneath breaks the flow, leaving a small quiver in the pattern. You could start over. The gardener's silence suggests you should not. So you continue, weaving the imperfection into the design, allowing the rake to rise over obstacles instead of forcing them flat. The sand sings in a hush, shh, shh, each stroke a breath against the day's heat. Sweat collects at your temples. A dragonfly hovers near your sleeve, curious. Halfway through, a breeze picks up and scatters a drift of leaves across your fresh lines. At first, frustration pulses in your throat, but then you see the leaves settle like deliberate brushstrokes. The rake pauses. You decide they belong. You bend your path around them, curving like water circumventing rocks. Historians still debate whether these gardens were pure aesthetics or moving meditations. Some claim samurai raked to sharpen focus before battle. Others say the patterns mirrored unseen constellations, guiding inner order. Whatever the scholarship, today it is teaching you to loosen your grip on perfection. When the final line meets the first, the pattern closes with quiet satisfaction, not flawless, alive. The gardener inspects the design, eyes soft beneath his hat's shadow. He nods once, then reaches down, picks a single stray pebble from the sand and places it in your palm. No words. A small, round reminder that every pattern begins with one tiny shift. You bow, fist closing around the pebble's cool weight. The bell for afternoon tea sounds in the distance. Two gentle chimes that float above the cicadas. You return the rake, bow to the courtyard, and step back onto stone with lighter feet. The sand stays behind, lines unbroken for now, breathing in rhythm with the summer wind. You carry the pebble in your sleeve, its presence a quiet tap against your wrist each time you move, whispering, "The world isn't carved by force, but by steady, patient strokes." The The scent of roasted barley drifts through the temple corridors as you follow the sound of quiet conversation and clinking porcelain to the tea pavilion. The afternoon sun rests low in the sky now, throwing golden lattices across the shoji screens. You remove your sandals and step inside. The room is small, square, and perfect, like it was folded into existence. Tatami mats soften your footsteps as you kneel before the tea master, the same elderly man from days past whose hands always move as if water taught them. He doesn't greet you, not because he is distant, but because silence here is the highest form of respect. The tea ceremony begins. He moves with slow grace, lifting the scoop with 2 fingers, dipping it into powdered green tea like it's sacred dust. The ladle fills with water from a pot kept at precisely the right temperature. Not boiling, not warm, just enough. You watch every motion, the turn of the wrist, the soft swish of the whisk, the way the steam curls toward the ceiling like a question left unanswered. He sets the bowl in front of you, its rim turned slightly, inviting your hands to meet it the correct way. You bow. You lift it with both palms. You rotate it, as taught. And then, finally, you drink. The flavor is bold, bitter, earthy, alive. Not pleasant in the way sweetness is, but real. Like something that doesn't care to be liked, it just is. You place the bowl down slowly, breathe once, and then bow again. The tea master bows in return. It is the most honest conversation you've had all week. As you prepare to leave, he offers you a single folded paper crane. Its wings precise, its beak tilted slightly upward as if mid-flight. He says nothing. You understand. The paper is old, handmade with visible fibers and pale blue like winter sky. You slide it gently into your sleeve next to the pebble, both objects light as breath, but heavier than steel in what they carry. Outside, the courtyard glows in that sacred hour before dusk, when everything seems to exhale. You do the same, and for the first time your exhale feels complete. The light outside fades into that deep indigo where shadows lose their edges, and sound begins to hush itself. Lanterns flicker to life along the temple walkways, casting golden halos onto stone steps. You walk slowly now, not because you are tired, though you are, but because the evening seems to ask for it. You head toward the bathhouse, a wooden building nestled near the edge of the bamboo grove. It breathes steam from its rooftop vents like a slumbering dragon. You slide open the door and are met with warmth, both in temperature and in atmosphere. The air smells of hinoki wood and minerals, a scent that feels older than memory. You undress in silence, folding each piece of your uniform with the same care you've practiced in your movements. You place them in a basket, bow slightly to no one in particular, and step into the bathing area. Buckets line the wall. You sit on a small wooden stool and begin to wash. Not scrub, not rush, just wash. The water is warm and soft, and as it runs down your arms, your legs, your neck, it carries more than dust. It carries the weight of repetition, of tension, of words never spoken. You rinse your face last, slowly, letting the water sit in your palms before pressing it over your skin. You rise and walk to the soaking tub. It's deep and square, filled with still, steaming water that seems to hold silence in liquid form. You step in, one foot, then the other, and lower yourself slowly. Your entire body exhales. The heat wraps around your muscles like a second robe, and for a few long moments time does not exist. You stare at the surface, at the flicker of lantern light playing in ripples, and you feel yourself dissolve into it. Your thoughts drift, not like clouds, but like small boats, unmoored and bobbing gently out of sight. You think of the pebble in your robe, the paper crane, the first time you missed a strike, the first time you didn't. A senior student enters the room. He bows. You bow back. No words. He takes his place at the opposite end of the tub. You both sit, submerged to your shoulders, like monks inside a bowl of tea. When you finally step out, your limbs are heavy and loose. You dry yourself with a thin cloth that somehow feels softer than anything else you've touched all day. You dress in fresh robes. They cling differently. New fabric, new skin. As you step back into the cool night, the world feels quieter, like it's bowed to you in return. You walk toward your quarters slowly. The gravel no longer crunches beneath your feet, it whispers. Night blankets the temple in deep velvety blue as you return to your quarters. The paper walls of your room glow faintly with the flickering of an oil lamp outside, and everything inside is hushed, as if the building itself has begun to breathe slower. You kneel by the small desk near your futon, nothing more than a polished plank of wood with a single drawer, and slide it open. Inside rests a thin journal bound in rice paper. It's not yours. Not entirely. Each trainee adds to it during their time here, contributing a page, a thought, a moment. No names, no dates, just fragments of the path. Tonight, it's your turn. You take a brush, dip it in ink, and let the bristles hover above the page. At first, your mind races. Should you write about the sword form, the garden, the moment in the bath when your thoughts drifted far enough to disappear? Instead, you begin with a single word: stillness. Then another: practice. You write slowly, carefully. The strokes are steady, not perfect, but they hold. You describe a moment, not dramatic, not significant, just the sound of a pebble rolling off a rake, and how that sound stayed with you longer than it should have. You finish the entry with a single line. Sometimes the smallest sounds carry the deepest echoes. You bow to the page and close the journal. It isn't a record, it's a mirror. You place it back into the drawer and slide it shut with care. As you prepare for rest, you open the small wooden box beside your futon, the one where you keep the paper crane and the pebble. You hold both in your hands for a moment, their textures so different. One smooth and cool, the other light and folded. Together they feel like balance. You place them back carefully and lie down. The futon is thin but welcoming. The sounds of night fill the space gently. Wind through bamboo, a soft creak of beams, the distant flap of a crow settling onto a high perch. Your eyes begin to close, not from exhaustion, but from ease. Not sleep yet, but something softer. The space just before dreams, where the lessons of the day begin to settle like dust on still water. You breathe in, and you stay there. Morning arrives not with urgency, but with invitation. Light spills through the paper windows like warm tea, slow, golden, and steady. You wake before the bell again, though just barely. Your body now knows this rhythm like it knows breath. You sit up, stretch quietly, and begin your morning routine. Folding your bedding, washing your face, bowing once to the kamidana. Your movements are fluid, no longer conscious effort but memory made physical. Today's training is announced with a single word: awareness. You don't ask what it means. You bow and follow. You're led to the temple's inner path, where the monks walk in pairs, always barefoot, always at dawn. You've seen them many times, but this time, you walk with them. No weapons, no gear. Just you, your breath and the soles of your feet against ancient stone. You walk in silence. One step, pause. Another step, pause again. It's not about speed, it's about seeing, not looking, seeing. The moss between stones, the faint cracks in the wood of the Torii gate, the way light touches each surface as though it's remembering it. A spiderweb connecting two lanterns trembling ever so slightly in the morning breeze. You walk for what feels like hours. You don't speak. No one does. But in this silence, you begin to notice something strange. The world is louder than you thought. The rustle of your robe, the soft tap of your heel, the shifting of breath from the person beside you. And then, as if the temple itself exhales, you hear the absence of noise. Not silence, but the shape that silence leaves behind. Eventually, the line stops. The monks bow. You bow with them. You do not ask what this was meant to teach. You already know. In combat, in calligraphy, in stillness, awareness is everything. Without it, your blade is blind. Your breath is wasted. Your presence is nowhere. As the group disperses, you remain a moment longer, looking up through the tree canopy, watching the sunlight filter through like water. It feels like the sky is nodding at you. You nod back and return to the dojo without speaking a word. The courtyard hums softly beneath the midday sun, its stone surface warm beneath your feet as you kneel beside a shallow wooden basin. Today's task is deceptively simple: polishing blades. Not real ones, not yet. Just practice swords, bakken and iaito, used by generations of students before you. Each one carries the oil of countless hands, the scratches of countless stumbles, and the quiet dignity of service. You're handed a cloth, a tiny jar of camellia oil, and a blade dulled by time and use. No one speaks. You bow to the sword before beginning, not because it's sharp, but because it matters. The cloth is soft in your hand, but the work demands patience. You run the fabric along the wooden edge, watching as dullness slowly gives way to a quiet luster. Not shine, luster. A subtle reminder that effort leaves a mark. You move from sword to sword, tracing each curve, each imperfection. Tiny notches and dents become stories. You imagine the moment they were made, a missed block, a dropped guard, a lesson learned the hard way. You polish them not to erase the past, but to honor it. A few paces away, another trainee drops a bakken. It clatters against the stone, breaking the calm like a splash in still water. No one scolds, no one even looks. But the trainee picks it up slower, more carefully, bowing twice, once to the sword and once to the space it fell into. You keep polishing. A passing breeze lifts the edge of your sleeve. The scent of the camellia oil clings to your fingers, a mix of earth, blossom, and memory. As you finish your final blade, your hands are sore but steady. You stack the cleaned bakken gently, each one aligned as if placing old warriors back into formation. The sensei approaches. He says nothing. He picks up one of the polished swords, holds it to the light, and simply nods. The nod doesn't praise your work. It recognizes your care. And somehow that's worth more. You bow, your cloth still in hand, and walk away with fingers stained not with ink or dirt, but with discipline. Late afternoon brings with it a shift, not in schedule, but in tone. The sun dips lower, casting long shadows across the temple grounds, and the wind picks up just enough to stir the hanging chimes. You're led toward the rear field, where a solitary wooden post stands upright in the middle of worn earth. You recognize it. This is the makiwara, the striking post. Today, you are to begin. You've passed it many times. Weathered, scarred, wrapped in rice straw, its surface sun-bleached and shaped by countless hands before yours. Now it's your turn. The instructor stands beside you, quiet. He places a bakken in your palm and gestures. One strike. You breathe, lift, and swing. The impact echoes in your forearms, more vibration than pain, but enough to remind you that this isn't a target. It's a teacher. You try again, and again. Each strike is followed by silence. No feedback, no correction. Only the sound of wood on wood and the rustle of leaves high above. The sun warms your back. Sweat drips slowly from your brow. The instructor adjusts your stance with a soft tap to your ankle. You hadn't noticed your weight shifting forward too soon. You bow slightly. Try again. Strike. Reset. Strike. Reset. The sound becomes rhythm. The rhythm becomes breath. And breath, as always, becomes everything. You realize that hitting the post isn't the point. It's about returning to position after. It's about what happens between impact and stillness. A light drizzle begins to fall, unexpected, gentle. Tiny droplets land on your shoulders, your hands, the blade in your grip. The scent of wet earth rises instantly, grounding you further. You strike once more, not harder, just clearer. And the sound it makes, deep, clean, almost hollow, feels like an answer to a question you didn't know you asked. You bow to the makiwara. It stands unmoved. But somehow you feel seen. As you leave the field, rain slowly turns the dust to mud, your footprints marking the path behind you. Temporary, yes, but present and fully felt. Evening wraps the temple in softness again. The rain now faded to a mist that clings to stone and skin like memory. You return to your quarters to change. your training robe damp, streaked with earth from where you knelt after that final strike. You fold it with care, not concern, and lay it beside the futon. Tonight the sensei calls for a gathering, not in the dojo, not in the study hall, but beneath the open sky. You follow the others in silence, sandals brushing against wet gravel, until you reach the high hill behind the main temple. There, lanterns flicker low in glass bowls, and a fire crackles gently in a circle of stone. A few cushions are arranged around it, damp from the mist but still warm. You sit. So do the others. The sensei does not speak. He simply sits across from you, the firelight dancing across the lines of his face, making his eyes seem older, deeper. In his hands he holds a bundle of narrow wooden tablets, bound with string. He unties them slowly and passes them around. One tablet comes to you, carved with a single character. Ren, Nin, endurance. You hold it in your palm. It's heavier than it looks. Each trainee receives a different character. Patience, honor, discipline, forgiveness. Words not explained, only given. There is no discussion, no test. Only the gift of something you're meant to carry, not physically, but inside. The fire pops softly, sending up sparks that rise like fleeting thoughts. You watch them disappear into the dark. Someone begins to speak. Not the sensei, but a senior student. He shares a moment from his early training, a time he failed. Not once, but often. He speaks not with shame, but with calm. The group listens. No laughter, no nods, just stillness. Then another student speaks, and another. Not confessions, just truths. And somehow, without being told to, you understand. This is part of the training too. The fire, the rain-damp air. The act of hearing each other not with judgment but with presence. When your turn comes, you don't plan your words. You just speak of the first time you couldn't strike the makiwara without flinching. Of how you thought silence was emptiness until it wasn't. And when you finish, no one replies. But someone passes you a small bowl of warm barley tea. You drink. You bow. And the fire keeps burning. The fire has faded to embers, glowing like the final breath of a long-held thought. You walk back to your quarters beneath a sky thick with stars, so many, it feels like the heavens have scattered grains of salt across black silk. The mist has lifted. Everything feels clean and strangely tender. You place the wooden tablet beside your futon, its single carved character facing upward like a vow. You don't look at it long. You don't need to. The word is already sitting in your chest like a stone in calm water. You lie down. Not because you are exhausted, though you are, but because your body has nothing left to prove. Tonight, sleep comes slowly, not because of restlessness, but because your mind drifts across the day's edges, trailing fingers through memories still warm from firelight. The weight of the Bakken, the scent of camellia oil, the sound of a perfectly struck post. Your eyes begin to close just as the wind picks up again outside, brushing past the paper walls like a hand smoothing the fabric of your dreams. But just before sleep fully takes you, a voice, soft, measured, belonging to the sensei. He's outside your door, not looking in, just standing there. He says 5 words, low, even, without explanation. You are becoming the blade. And then he walks away. The gravel crunches softly under his feet, and then silence. Not empty, but full. You exhale once, the way you did in the river. The futon shifts beneath you like a boat rocking gently into harbor. You are not finished, but you are ready for what comes next, whatever form it takes. The following morning arrives with an unusual stillness, as if the air itself is holding its breath. You rise as always, quiet, measured, but something feels different. You notice it in the way the other trainees carry themselves. Their movements are slower, more careful. There are no greetings, no eye contact, just a quiet current of anticipation. Today is your first Kakari Geiko. Not a sparring match, a test of pressure, endurance, Awareness. You are not told the rules, because there aren't any. The senior students stand at one end of the dojo, lined up like statues. You kneel at the far side, bakken in hand. The floor beneath you feels warmer than usual, but maybe that's just your pulse. Steady but louder than it should be. A bell rings. You rise, step forward, and begin. The first senior steps out to meet you. No hesitation. His bakken moves fast, not recklessly, but with force. You parry, barely. The impact jars your arms. You counter. He blocks. Again. And again. The exchange is over in seconds, but your breath is already uneven. You move forward. Another senior. Another clash. Each one faster than the last. There's no time to reset. No time to think. Only react. Move. Breathe. Absorb. Fail. Try again. The point is not to win. The point is to survive. Your feet slide across the floor, catching splinters, slipping in sweat. You're struck in the shoulder. Then the thigh. Not hard enough to bruise, but hard enough to teach. You start to hear your breath, a rhythm you can hold on to. Inhale, parry, exhale, step forward, again, again, again. By the time you reach the last opponent, your legs tremble. Your vision narrows. You can feel your heartbeat in your hands. He raises his bakken. So do you. He doesn't strike. Not immediately. Instead, he watches. And in his eyes, you recognize something. Not approval, not pity, recognition. He sees that you're still standing. And he bows. Not deeply, but enough. You bow in return, the movement making your knees scream. The bell rings again. Again. It's over. You return to your place. You kneel. Your shoulders throb. Your arms shake. But your gaze is steady. You didn't win. You didn't lose. You endured. And in this place, that is everything. The sun climbs slowly, stretching its fingers through the paper windows and warming the wooden floor beneath your feet. Your body aches from yesterday's kakari geiko, muscles stiff, joints sore. But the ache is not unwelcome. It is a reminder, a signpost of effort and survival. You approach the calligraphy room, a quiet space fragrant with ink and paper. The long table is cleared save for a scroll of fresh rice paper, a brush, and a small inkstone. The sensei awaits you there, his expression unreadable but calm. Today's lesson is about control, both of body and mind. You kneel and dip the brush into the ink. The black liquid clings to the bristles, heavy and alive. You take a breath, steady your hand, and begin to draw. The characters flow slowly, each stroke deliberate, steady. There is no rush here, no need for perfection, just presence. You write the character Zhang, Chu, meaning loyalty. Your hand trembles slightly on the final stroke. You pause and breathe. The sensei nods. You repeat the character several times, each iteration steadier than the last. Between strokes, your mind wanders. Back to the dojo, to the river crossing, to the silent meditation. The lessons are weaving together now, threads pulling taut in the fabric of your understanding. Historians debate the exact origins of samurai calligraphy practices, whether they were formalized later or integral from the start. But the purpose is clear: discipline, focus, and humility. You set the brush down, bow to the scroll, and feel for the first time a flicker of calm strength rising within you. Not the strength of muscle or blade, but the quiet strength of intention. You leave the room lighter than when you entered. The afternoon settles in with a gentle warmth, the kind that softens edges and invites reflection. You are guided to the temple library, a low, wooden room filled with shelves of scrolls, books, and artifacts. The scent of aged paper and sandalwood fills the air, wrapping around you like a quiet welcome. Your task today is research, not with ink and brush, but with observation. The sensei hands you a scroll delicate and faded, its edges frayed like the hands of time. The text is ancient, written in elegant calligraphy that curves like waves across the page. You unroll it carefully, feeling the weight of history settle on your shoulders. The scroll tells of a legendary samurai, a figure of discipline and honor whose deeds shaped the history of the region. But it also reveals a truth rarely spoken aloud. Even the strongest warriors faced doubt, fear, and failure. You trace the characters slowly, letting the story seep into you. The words speak not just of battle, but of the quiet moments. The nights spent questioning one's path, the days marked by small acts of kindness, the times when mercy was the bravest choice. As you read, you realize that the way of the samurai is not only forged in combat, but in character. The lessons you've learned with sword and sand, with breath and silence, all point back to this core: honor in action and heart. You carefully roll the scroll back up, setting it aside with reverence. The sensei nods, pleased. You bow in return. Outside, the sun begins to dip, casting long shadows that stretch like stories across the courtyard. You walk back with a new weight, lighter than armor, heavier than doubt. The evening breeze carries the faint scent of jasmine as you return to the meditation hall. The lanterns flicker softly, their light casting gentle shadows on the tatami mats. You kneel once again in the seiza position, settling into the quiet that has become both familiar and foreign. Tonight, the practice is breathing, not the shallow breath of hurry, but deep, measured inhales and exhales that fill the lungs and calm the mind. You close your eyes and feel the air enter, tracing its path through your body, filling every corner you didn't know needed filling. You exhale slowly, releasing tension you hadn't realized you were holding. In, thoughts come and go. Memories of training, the sting of sweat, the softness of tea, but you watch them pass without grasping. In, a soft bell chimes, a reminder to return to the present moment. Your breath becomes your anchor. You stay with it. In, out, in, out. Time loses meaning. There is only this, only breath, only stillness. When the bell sounds again, you open your eyes slowly, feeling grounded and present. You bow deeply to the room, a silent thanks for the lesson. And as you rise, you realize this practice is the thread weaving all the others together. Without breath, there is no sword. Without stillness, there is no strength. Out. And in this moment, you understand the path is not just physical, it is spiritual. You leave the hall lighter, ready to face whatever tomorrow brings. Night has deepened, wrapping the temple in a blanket of silence broken only by the distant call of an owl. You find yourself drawn outside to the small shrine tucked away behind the main hall. Its wooden beams are worn, moss clinging softly like a forgotten memory. You kneel before the altar, hands resting lightly on your thighs. The air is cool, scented faintly with incense and earth. A single candle flickers, casting shadows that dance gently across the stone. Tonight's ritual is one of gratitude. You close your eyes and breathe deeply, feeling the stillness settle around you like a protective cloak. You think of the day's lessons, the strikes, the silence, the flow of the river, the weight of the pebble, the taste of tea, each moment a thread woven into the tapestry of your training. You offer a silent thank you, not for the victories, but for the struggle, for the patience, for the quiet growth that no one sees but you. You open your eyes and bow deeply to the shrine. As you rise, the sensei appears quietly behind you, nodding with a rare softness. No words pass between you. None are needed. You walk back to your quarters, steps light and steady. The journey is far from over. But tonight you rest with a heart a little fuller, a spirit a little stronger, and a mind finally at peace. The dawn arrives soft and quiet, the first light filtering gently through paper screens to spill golden pools onto the wooden floor. You awaken with a sense of calm readiness, the aches from yesterday's lessons settling into a steady hum of resilience. Today, focus is on breathing, kokyu, not just as a physical act, but as a tool to sharpen every movement. You gather with the others beneath the wide eaves of the temple, the morning air cool but already fragrant with blooming plum blossoms. Your sensei leads a series of exercises, slow, deliberate inhalations and exhalations timed with gentle stretches and controlled motions. You find yourself more aware of the space between breaths, the silence that lingers and sharpens your senses. The practice is both grounding and liberating, like learning to listen for the whisper in a roaring forest. You notice how your mind quiets, how tension leaves your shoulders, how your body feels lighter yet more anchored. By the time the sun climbs higher, you are breathing not only with your lungs but with your whole being. And you realize that mastery begins not in strength, but in stillness. The morning session flows seamlessly into the next, and you are guided toward a long, narrow corridor you've never entered before. Its walls are lined with spears, yari, naginata, each one mounted with quiet reverence, dustless, balanced, waiting. Today, you will train with the staff. The weapon placed in your hands is a simple bow, smooth oak, unadorned, longer than your height, surprisingly light. The instructor steps forward. He doesn't explain, he demonstrates. A forward thrust, a sweeping arc, a pivoting block. The movements are wide and circular, less precise than the sword, but no less graceful. Where the blade is sharp and finite, the staff is fluid, endlessly returning. You try to mirror the form, your grip slips. You adjust. The bow wobbles under its own weight, but you begin to find the rhythm. Spin, step, block, thrust. It becomes a kind of dance. Footwork tied to motion, breathing tied to intention. You are not striking yet, only learning the language. The staff hums when you spin it correctly. A low, satisfying tone like wind through a hollow tree. The others begin to move with you. A circle of motion, a wheel of students. No one leads, no one follows. You are simply part of the pattern. In the far corner, an elder monk watches, expression unreadable. He nods once, barely perceptible, but you see it, and you hold on to it. You leave the corridor later than expected, sweat damp and sore in places that haven't hurt before, but your steps are light, your fingers tingling with the memory of wood in motion. You have added another form to your body, and with it, a little more understanding of what it means to be adaptable, to bend without breaking, to move without losing center. The sun hovers at its peak as you're led to the garden courtyard, an open space bordered by low hedges and riverstones, where silence settles as thickly as morning dew. Today's lesson isn't about technique or breath. It's about observation. You are handed a simple object, a leaf, dry, curled slightly at the edge, its veins like rivers across brittle land. You are told to study it. No instructions, no time limit, just observe. You sit cross-legged on the warm stone, leaf in hand, and stare. At first it feels ridiculous. It's just a leaf. Then, slowly, something shifts. You notice its subtle color gradient, from burnt orange to pale gold. You trace the serrated edges with your thumb. You turn it over. You see where it was once connected to life. Its base darker, more fragile. A breeze lifts another leaf from the ground and carries it a few inches before it settles again, as if to remind you, even the smallest movements are part of something bigger. Time begins to slow. You stop thinking about your next task, your next meal, your next mistake. You're just there, with the leaf, with the wind, with your breath. Eventually, the instructor returns. You offer the leaf back. He shakes his head. Keep it. No explanation. You bow. The leaf goes into your sleeve next to the pebble, the paper crane, the wooden tablet, your small, growing archive. Each one silent, each one weightless, each one a piece of who you're becoming. The afternoon clouds gather overhead, casting a soft grayness across the temple grounds. Not stormy, not heavy, just enough to dim the light and hush the colors. The sensei calls you and a few others to the western path, a trail that winds through the trees and leads to a place you've never seen before. You walk for some time. The ground grows uneven, the air cooler. And then you arrive. A field of stones. No pattern. No markers. Just smooth, weather-worn rocks spread across a patch of mossy earth. It feels sacred without saying so. You are told to sit and wait. For what? You don't ask. Because here, questions are answered by stillness, not words. You sit. The breeze moves. The trees shift. Somewhere nearby, a bird calls once, then goes silent. Time expands. You begin to notice how different the stones are. Some cracked, some nearly round. A few sit half-buried, almost invisible. You wonder who placed them, or if they arrived this way naturally, as if drawn by something deeper than gravity. Your instructor finally speaks. This is where we remember those who trained before us. You bow your head. There are no names, no dates, only presence. You're handed a stone, small, round, smooth. You're told to place it somewhere in the field, wherever it feels right. You walk slowly, turning the stone in your fingers. You kneel, set it down gently next to a lichen-covered rock, and press your palm to it for a moment, offering no words, just acknowledgement. Not of loss, but of continuation. The circle you're now part of. The path that didn't begin with you and won't end with you either. You bow once to the field. The stones say nothing. But something inside you is quieter now, not empty, settled. You walk back in silence, hands empty, heart full. Dusk settles across the temple like a silk cloth drawn slowly over the world. Lanterns glow along the corridors, their warm light flickering gently in rhythm with your footsteps. You're called to the inner dojo once more, not for drills or meditation, but for a ceremony. You're not told what it is, only that you must come clean, dressed, and ready. You kneel in a circle with the others. The floor has been swept. Incense burns at each corner of the room. In the center lies a single folded robe, black, plain, pristine. The sensei enters. He carries no sword, only silence. He walks to the center of the circle, bows, then begins to speak, not loudly, but with purpose. He tells the story of Mu, emptiness, not void, not absence, but the kind of emptiness that makes space for everything else. The empty cup that can receive water, the quiet room that can hold thought, the open mind that can carry 1,000 lessons. He holds up the black robe. This is not earned, he says, this is accepted. You are called by name, your training name, not your birth name. You bow deeply. You rise slowly. You walk to the center. The robe is placed in your hands. Its weight surprises you. Not heavy, but meaningful, like cloth woven from silence. You do not wear it. Not yet. That will come in time. You return to your place in the circle and sit again. The next name is called, and then another, until each student holds a robe. No applause, no praise, just a shared stillness that feels louder than any celebration. When the sensei bows and departs, the circle holds for a moment longer. A breath, a pause, and then quietly, you all stand. Outside, the stars begin to prick holes in the night. You walk back slowly, robe folded in your arms, its black fabric soaking up the lantern light. You place it on your futon. You bow to it, and you sit beside it in silence, knowing that tonight, something shifted, not in how others see you, but in how you see yourself. Morning arrives gently without urgency. The birds begin their song just before the bell rings, and the light pours into your room in long, golden streaks. The black robe rests beside your futon, untouched but no longer unfamiliar. You bow to it once more before folding it carefully and returning to your white training clothes. You are not yet ready to wear it, but you are no longer the same person who first arrived here. Today, the lesson is unexpected. You are sent to the village. Accompanied by a senior student, you walk down the winding path that leads away from the temple and into the world you have been apart from for so long. It feels strange, the clatter of carts, the laughter of children, the smell of fish drying in the sun. Everything is louder here. And yet, somehow you are quieter inside. You were asked to assist the blacksmith, a wide-shouldered man with arms like tree trunks and eyes that study everything, including you. He hands you a hammer, points to the forge. You nod. There is no sword making today, only tools. You help shape a plowhead, flattening the red-hot iron against the anvil while sparks leap around you like fireflies with too much ambition. It's hard, hot, loud. Your arms tire quickly, but you don't stop. The blacksmith doesn't speak for most of the day. Only at the end, while handing you a cup of cool water, does he say, "You hit the metal," but you also listen to it. Most don't. You bow deeply, not because of praise, but because you understand that every strike of hammer or sword has a tone, and that tone carries meaning. On the way back to the temple, the senior student turns to you and says, "He only speaks to those he respects." You say nothing. Just keep walking. Back through the gates. Back into the stillness. And as you bow upon re-entry, you feel, perhaps for the first time, that you carry the outside world within you now. Not as a distraction, but as part of the path. Evening falls in layers, soft and cool, like linen drawn across tired shoulders. You return from the village covered in soot, your hands stained with iron and ash, but your steps are calm, measured, like brush strokes guided by breath. Before you clean yourself, you visit the koi pond. You sit on the worn wooden deck that overhangs the water, legs crossed, watching the fish glide just beneath the surface. Their scales shimmer like molten metal, shifting in color each time they turn. You notice how they move without resistance. No urgency, no fear, just presence. One koi swims closer, its orange and white body cutting a slow path through the green-tinted water. It pauses beneath your reflection. You stare at yourself, not in vanity, but in curiosity. You look different, not in face, but in feeling. The noise inside has faded. Your mind still chatters from time to time, but now, you know how to wait until it quiets. You rise, return to your quarters, and prepare for the bath. The water tonight feels especially warm, especially kind. You scrub the soot from your skin. Watch the dark swirls disappear into the drain. You breathe deeper. Later, wrapped in clean robes, you sit beside your black robe again. You don't touch it. You simply sit with it. Your hand brushes the small bundle of items beside your futon, the pebble, the crane, the wooden tablet, the folded leaf. You add a new one, a tiny shard of coal from the forge. No one told you to take it, but you did. It carries heat even now, as if remembering the fire it once danced in. You wrap it in cloth and place it gently with the others. Each object, a lesson. Each one, weightless. Each one, impossibly heavy with meaning. The candle flickers. You blow it out. And rest, not because the day is done, but because you're learning to let it be. The morning sky is veiled in mist and the bell echoes softer than usual, as if even the air wishes to speak more gently today. You rise with ease. The aches have faded. What remains is something steadier than comfort, familiarity. Your body moves before you think, folding the futon, bowing to the kamadana, sipping the tea left silently outside your door. Today's lesson begins not in the dojo, but beneath the trees. You and your fellow trainees are led into the forest, not far but deep enough that the sounds of the temple fall away. Here, the birds speak louder, and the path disappears. You are told to find your way back, alone. No maps, no companions, no sword, just you. You bow and begin. At first the trail is clear, roots, stones, the faint indent of passing feet. But soon the path splits, then vanishes. The forest thickens, branches clawing the light. You stop and listen, not for help, but for direction. You hear water, faint, steady, a stream. You turn toward it. Step by step, you test the ground. It gives a little, then holds. Leaves crunch beneath your feet like brittle paper. A bird takes flight ahead of you, a flash of white and brown. You follow. There is no fear, only awareness. You remember the training, how your sensei said the mind will panic long before the body needs to. That getting lost is not being without a path. It is not seeing that the path was never straight. You crouch near a stone and notice moss on one side. You've heard this before. Moss grows thickest on the north. You turn south. Eventually, the trees thin, and the path, faint but real, reappears. When you step out from the woods, the temple is quiet in the distance, its roof peeking over the treetops like an old friend watching you return. No one greets you. No one needed to. The lesson wasn't about being found. It was about remembering you were never truly lost. As you re-enter the temple grounds, the air feels different. Not colder, not warmer, but somehow more still. The trees seem taller. The sky, wider. You bow as you pass beneath the outer gate, your palms pressed together without needing to think about it. It's a gesture that has grown from habit into instinct. You are told to rest. But not in your quarters. You are led instead to a shaded alcove behind the main garden, where a low wooden bench sits beside a bed of raked gravel and a single blooming camellia. There's no training weapon, no scroll, no instructor watching. Just stillness. You sit and wait. The camellia sways slightly in the breeze. Petals drift down. One lands near your foot. You don't move to pick it up. You simply notice it. Time slows here, or maybe it stops. You recall the stories you've read, of warriors who sat in silence for hours before battle, not to prepare their bodies, but to still the noise within. To remember that movement without clarity is just chaos wearing armor. A senior student approaches and offers you a cup of barley tea. It's warm, nourishing. You drink slowly, each sip a pause in the day. She doesn't speak. She simply bows, and you bow in return. She leaves, and you are alone again. But you don't feel lonely. You feel held. By the garden, by the silence, by the camellia blooming without witness. When the bell eventually rings in the distance, its tone long and low, you rise with ease, leaving the bench as it was, the pedal still at your feet. You return not hurriedly, not dutifully, just wholly. And as you walk, you realize, rest is not the absence of training. It is the space where training sinks in, where effort becomes understanding, and where silence becomes strength. The night arrives like a friend who doesn't knock, just lets themselves in, knowing you're ready. The temple is quiet, but it's not the silence of nothingness anymore. It's the hush of something fulfilled, something whole. You sit in your room, surrounded by the small artifacts of your journey. The pebble from the garden, the paper crane, the leaf, the piece of coal, the wooden tablet with wren carved into it. Endurance. Each one carries a lesson. Each one holds a moment. Each one is proof. You were here and you didn't quit. You unfold the black robe. Tonight, finally, you wear it. The fabric slides over your shoulders like memory, soft, solid, earned. You tie the sash, adjust the folds, and look at yourself reflected in the polished water bowl by the window. You do not look like a warrior. You look like someone who knows something. And that's better. Outside, the moon is full, generous, slightly smug, as if it too has been watching you grow into someone who now bows before challenges instead of running from them. You step outside. The gravel crunches under your feet like applause in miniature. You make your way to the high hill overlooking the temple. No fanfare, no ceremony, just the wind, the stars, and the sound of someone quietly eating a rice cracker too loudly somewhere in the distance. You smile, because that's the thing, isn't it? The journey of becoming isn't a single strike or a scroll or a perfect kata. It's the way you tie your sandals now. It's how you bow to the broom as much as to the blade. It is the part of you that can now sit completely still while a mosquito lands on your forehead, and you don't immediately slap it like a wild villager defending a watermelon. You've changed, and you know it. You close your eyes, take one final deep breath, and release it into the night. The wind carries it across the rooftops, past the training posts, through the camellia garden and into the forest where you once thought you were lost, but weren't. You open your eyes, you smile again, and you whisper, just loud enough for the stars to hear, "Well, I still don't like cold baths, but I suppose even a samurai gets to complain once in a while." And with that, you turn and walk back down the hill, black robe brushing against your ankles, step steady. Mind clear, heart full, path open.